The Crimean Peninsula has been a point of contention for nearly a decade. This region, with its strategic location and rich history, has been at the heart of a geopolitical struggle that has far-reaching consequences. In 2014, Russia annexed the territory from Ukraine, a move that shocked the world and altered the geopolitical landscape of Eastern Europe. This move was condemned by much of the international community, including the United States and the European Union, who saw it as a blatant violation of international law. The annexation sparked a conflict that has simmered ever since, with sporadic skirmishes and ongoing tensions between Russian and Ukrainian forces. It ultimately escalated into a full-blown war in 2022 when Russia launched a full-scale invasion of Ukraine, leading to widespread devastation and a humanitarian crisis. The conflict has claimed thousands of lives, leaving behind a trail of destruction and sorrow. It has displaced millions more, forcing families to flee their homes and seek refuge in safer regions. Peace remains elusive as both sides continue to clash. The conflict in Crimea is complex, deeply rooted in historical grievances and geopolitical tensions that date back centuries. It is a region with a rich and tumultuous history, where empires have risen and fallen, and where the echoes of past conflicts still resonate today. Russia views Crimea as strategically important, not just for its historical ties but also for its military significance. It provides access to the Black Sea and serves as a base for its Black Sea Fleet, giving Russia a crucial naval advantage in the region. Ukraine, on the other hand, sees Crimea as an integral part of its territory, a land that is vital to its national identity and sovereignty. It is determined to regain control of the peninsula, viewing the Russian presence as an occupation that must be ended. The international community has largely sided with Ukraine in this dispute, with many countries imposing sanctions on Russia and providing support to Ukraine. The United States and its allies have imposed sanctions on Russia for its actions, aiming to pressure Moscow into withdrawing from Crimea. They have provided military aid to Ukraine, helping to bolster its defenses and resist Russian advances. However, these efforts have not been enough to dislodge Russia from Crimea, as the region remains firmly under Russian control. The conflict in Crimea is a microcosm of the larger struggle between Russia and the West, a struggle that harks back to the Cold War era. It is a reminder of the fragility of peace in the 21st century, where old rivalries and new ambitions can quickly ignite into conflict. It is a conflict with no easy solutions, a long shadow that continues to loom over the region and the world. Former President Donald Trump, never one to shy away from controversy, has waded into the fraught debate over Crimea. His recent comments have reignited discussions and debates that many thought had settled into a tense but stable status quo. From his platform Truth Social, he launched a verbal attack on Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. Trump's post was filled with sharp criticism and pointed remarks, making it clear that he disagrees with Zelensky's policies and actions. Trump criticized Zelensky's unwavering refusal to acknowledge Russian control over Crimea. He argued that Zelensky's stance was not only unrealistic, but also detrimental to the prospects of achieving any meaningful peace. He went so far as to call Zelensky's stance very harmful to any prospects for peace negotiations. Trump's words suggested that a more flexible approach might be necessary to move forward. Trump's comments sent shockwaves through the international community. Leaders and analysts around the world quickly reacted, with many expressing concern over the potential implications of his statements. Many saw his words as undermining the efforts of the current administration to find a diplomatic solution to the conflict. The timing of his comments was particularly troubling, given the delicate nature of ongoing negotiations. His remarks also raised concerns about his commitment to Ukraine's sovereignty. Critics argued that his stance could embolden Russian aggression and weaken international support for Ukraine. Trump's critics pointed to his history of cozying up to Russian President Vladimir Putin. They suggested that his latest pronouncements were further evidence of his pro-Russia leanings, which have long been a point of contention. This perception has only added to the controversy surrounding his comments. Trump's intervention into the debate is not entirely unexpected. He has a long history of making bold and often divisive statements on international issues. He has long expressed admiration for Putin's leadership. This admiration has often been cited as a reason for his controversial stance on Russia-related issues. He has also questioned the wisdom of U.S. support for Ukraine. Trump's skepticism about U.S. involvement in foreign conflicts is well documented, and has been a recurring theme in his public statements. However, his latest comments come at a particularly delicate time. The international community is on edge, and any disruption could have significant consequences. Peace talks are at a standstill. The ongoing conflict in Ukraine has created a humanitarian crisis with countless lives affected by the violence. The conflict shows no signs of abating. Despite numerous attempts at negotiation, the situation remains dire, with no clear resolution in sight. Trump's comments have added fuel to an already volatile situation. His words have sparked renewed debate and concern among international leaders and the public alike. They have made it even more difficult to find a path to peace in Ukraine. The road ahead is uncertain, and Trump's intervention has only complicated matters further. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky responded to Trump's criticism with defiance. He doubled down on his refusal to recognize Russia's annexation of Crimea. Zelensky pointed to the Ukrainian constitution, which considers Crimea to be an integral part of Ukraine. He argued that recognizing Russian control over Crimea would violate Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity. Zelensky's stance is rooted in both principle and pragmatism. On a principled level, he sees it as his duty to defend Ukraine's territorial integrity. He has repeatedly stated that he will not cede any Ukrainian territory to Russia. On a pragmatic level, Zelensky knows that conceding Crimea to Russia would be deeply unpopular with the Ukrainian people. It would likely lead to his political demise. Zelensky's stance has been met with widespread support in Ukraine. It has also been praised by many in the international community. They see it as a courageous stand against Russian aggression. However, some have questioned whether Zelensky's unwavering stance is conducive to finding a peaceful solution to the conflict. Zelensky's response to Trump's criticism highlights the challenges facing any attempt to negotiate an end to the war in Ukraine. A high-stakes meeting in London, aimed at finding a way to end the Russia-Ukraine conflict, was significantly downgraded. This meeting was initially seen as a pivotal moment, a chance for world leaders to come together and forge a path towards peace. This came after U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio abruptly canceled his planned attendance. His absence was a significant blow, as many had hoped his presence would lend weight to the discussions. Officially, Rubio's team cited logistical issues for the cancellation. They mentioned scheduling conflicts and transportation problems, but these explanations did little to quell the disappointment. However, whispers in diplomatic circles suggested a more telling reason: a perceived lack of progress in the peace talks. Some insiders hinted that Rubio's withdrawal was a strategic move, reflecting deeper frustrations. The meeting in London was intended to be a show of Western unity. Leaders from across the globe were expected to present a united front, demonstrating their collective resolve. It was meant to demonstrate a shared commitment to finding a peaceful resolution to the conflict. The hope was that a unified stance would pressure all parties to come to the negotiating table. Rubio's absence cast a pall over the proceedings. The empty chair was a stark reminder of the challenges facing the peace process. It raised questions about the U.S.'s commitment to the peace process. Observers wondered if the U.S. was truly invested in finding a solution, or if other priorities were taking precedence. The cancellation also highlighted the growing divisions within the international community over how to handle the conflict. Different countries had varying approaches and priorities, making consensus difficult. Some countries, like France and Germany, have been pushing for a negotiated settlement. They believe that dialogue and compromise are the keys to ending the conflict. They have urged Ukraine to be open to making concessions. These nations argue that flexibility is essential for any meaningful progress. Others, like the United States and the United Kingdom, have been more hesitant to engage in talks with Russia. They fear that premature negotiations could undermine their position. They have argued that Russia must be held accountable for its actions. These countries insist that any peace deal must include measures to address past aggressions. The downgraded London meeting was a setback for peace efforts. It underscored the complexities and the many hurdles that lie ahead. It underscored the difficulty of finding a solution that satisfies all parties. The road to peace remains long and fraught with challenges, but the hope for a resolution endures. Section 5, a controversial peace plan. The Biden administration has put forth a framework for peace in Ukraine. It has sparked immediate controversy. The proposal includes a significant concession, recognizing Russia's control over the Crimean Peninsula. In exchange, Russia would agree to a ceasefire along the current front lines. This represents a major shift in U.S. policy, reversing a decade of steadfast support for Ukraine's territorial integrity. The U.S. proposal has been met with a wave of resistance from Ukraine. President Zelensky has categorically rejected any deal that involves ceding Ukrainian territory. He argues that doing so would reward Russia's aggression and embolden them to seize more territory in the future. The proposal has also received pushback from some European allies. They're concerned that it would legitimize Russia's annexation of Crimea. They also worry that it would set a dangerous precedent for other territorial disputes around the world. In the face of growing tensions, efforts to bridge the divide have become more crucial than ever. Leaders from both sides are calling for dialogue, emphasizing the need for understanding and cooperation. The path to reconciliation is fraught with challenges, but the commitment to peace remains unwavering. Unfortunately, despite the calls for peace, renewed fighting has erupted. The situation on the ground is deteriorating rapidly, with both sides suffering significant losses. The international community is watching closely, urging restraint and offering to mediate. The stakes have never been higher. As the conflict escalates, voices from the Kremlin and Capitol Hill are becoming increasingly vocal. Leaders are making impassioned speeches, each presenting their perspective on the crisis. The world is listening, hoping that these powerful voices can find a path to de-escalation and ultimately, peace. The path to peace remains uncertain. Despite numerous attempts at negotiation, the road ahead is still unclear, yet there is a glimmer of hope. With persistence, diplomacy, and a shared vision for the future, there is a chance that peace can prevail. The world watches, waits, and hopes for a resolution, a